I think this is the first observation of PFAS in menstrual products in the US.
PFAS, or forever chemicals, have numerous negative health effects associated with them. Our research has found them in a series of menstrual products.
And we're very eager to let people know.
Hello, I'm Hadley Marchek from the American Chemical Society. Welcome to this media briefing for ACS Fall 2023. Period products like pads, tampons, cups, and underwear don't usually have labels on them that lists what's in them. So researchers have gone and tested over 100 period products for fluorinated compounds, which are an indicator of potentially harmful per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which are also called PFAS. The results show that PFAS are absent from many products, but they might be accidentally or intentionally added to some others. We're joined today by Graham Peasley and Alyssa Wicks from the University of Notre Dame. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Graham, how did your research team get involved in testing period products?
We were involved in screening for PFAS, the forever chemicals, by using our technique for look at total fluorine. And so we had been looking at school uniforms, we've been looking at cosmetics, we've been looking at food packaging, and a bunch of other consumer products that people see. And Alyssa had the brilliant idea to test for feminine hygiene products, which is a broad category, but specifically period products, to see if the PFAS were also used to impart some water resistance there.
Alyssa, how do you analyze your samples for fluorinated compounds?
First, we analyze our products using a rapid screening technique. It's a mouthful. It's called particle-induced gamma ray emission spectroscopy, or PIGGY for short. This technique uses a particle accelerator to generate a stream of protons. The protons then hit our sample, which are mounted on these little target frames. Here is shown a tampon on one of our target frames. And in the hole shown here, the beam goes through, and the beam interacts with our sample, causing gamma rays to be emitted off of it. We then have detectors that pick up the emitted gamma rays, and we can, using the spectra generated, look for certain peaks that correspond to the fluorine-19 isotope to quantify how much fluorine is in a sample. We like using PIGGY because it's really rapid. It's 3 minutes of runtime on the accelerator, and sample prep is very quick. It's just taking our product and taping it to this nice metal target frame. And the other technique we use is more in depth. It's liquid chromatography mass spectrometry, which we use for targeted analysis, meaning that we can determine the types of PFAS in our products. That technique, while really powerful, is more intensive on the sample prep. It takes probably half a day to prep your samples for that. And then it's 18-minute run times on the mass spec.
And so which products have you tested?
It's a wide range. It includes period underwear, menstrual cups, tampons, the applicators of the tampons, reusable pads, disposable incontinence underwear, reusable incontinence underwear, disposable incontinence pads, and reusable incontinence pads, and then the wrappers for many of these products.
So what are some of your results then that you found?
Some of the highest levels of PFAS across the products we tested, we found in some of the period underwear samples. They were high enough that we would consider it to contain polymeric PFAS, which when they make the synthetic fibers that are in these underwear, they're adding PFAS to these fibers. So that fell into period underwear. And then there were some other products that didn't have as high levels of fluorine, but still enough that we believe that fluorine is being intentionally added. So that was another subsect of the period underwear, some of the reusable pads. And then about half of the categories we tested also contained fluorine levels that we don't think are intentional, but are coming along during the manufacturing process and are still concerning.
Such as in the wrappers.
Mhm.
So should people be concerned about fluorinated compounds or PFAS being in their period products?
Yes, because no PFAS is good PFAS. The silver lining, at least with the menstrual underwear, is that the fluorinated layers are in the more exterior layers. So with these products, they contain several layers, anywhere from 3 to up to 10. And I screened every layer with Piggy and found that the most heavily fluorinated layers were the ones in the external layers of the underwear, or that would be touching your clothing instead of in contact with your skin. That's at least with unwashed underwear. We're not sure with time if the PFAS migrates through the different layers. But at the end of their life, these menstrual products get thrown away, especially those single-use products, and they end up in landfills. PFAS is very mobile in the environment, and in landfills comes out of the products, enters landfill leachate, and then can get into our drinking water indirectly, exposing us later.
So what are some of the potential health effects from PFAS?
Well, PFAS are known, and there are, literally thousands of studies now published on various health aspects and ecological and human health aspects of PFAS. At very low concentrations, if you're exposed to them, there are a number of correlated effects, adverse health effects. In humans, they're concerned with a couple types of cancer, hypertension or pregnancy-induced hypertension, ulcerative colitis, and even thyroid disease. Though recently there's been more work on immunotoxicity. These compounds affect, all of them seem to have some immunocompromise. They affect the immune system, and there's also endocrine disruption. So there's a wide gamut of health effects that are known, a whole lot more in animal studies that suggest that they may even be broader. And we've only studied really 2 of the 12,000 known PFAS. Ongoing toxicology studies are going with this. But there is, as Alyssa suggested, no safe PFAS that we know of. They all have certain effects. There are some which are safer than others, of course, but the presence of these molecules and the length of time, the last hundreds, if not thousands of years in the environment, suggests that they will get into products and into food webs, where we will have generations affected by them.
And so what are some of the next steps then for your research project?
We touched on that we use Piggy as a way to quantify the total fluorine in our samples. Piggy is a great tool, but it doesn't tell you what specific PFAS compounds are in all these products. So to figure that out, you need to do targeted analysis, which we do using liquid chromatography tandem mass spectrometry. And we target for 31 PFAS compounds. So we just got our new PFAS standard set. So I'll be busy these upcoming weeks doing all the targeted analysis to look for trends in what types of PFAS are being found in these products. We also have products not just from the US, but from abroad. So also diving more into the regions that these products are coming from and if there's trends in the different regions. And then we're hoping to have a manuscript ready to submit by the time of the ACS meeting.
So Graham, is there any action that people or maybe these companies can take so that consumers know they're purchasing PFAS-free period products?
That's a great question, because there's no label that comes with most of these products that will tell you ingredient lists. And it is up to a savvy consumer would try to avoid PFAS in general, but there's no way to know without some indication from the manufacturing. So what we would like to do is argue for stronger labeling constraints, and a company that was earnest in removing PFAS from their products might be able to put a label on saying this one is PFAS free. That would be what we'd ask industry to do, would be to respond with which ones have PFAS and which ones don't. It's easier than the consumer finding that out. We can do it as scientists, but that's expensive, and I don't think it needs to be done if the manufacturers can identify which processes are being used. And it's an education for the manufacturers as well. Many of these companies don't know whether they're using PFAS or not. I've had conversations with them, and they're unaware of their supply being whether it was using PFAS or not. So I think part of the purpose of the paper is education, and that we teach people that there are such things, and they are found in all sorts of consumer products, including these personal products, which are important to the users, is to know that they're not being exposed unnecessarily to PFAS. So I think that if we can educate the consumer, and there's a demand for PFAS-free products, that market force will, companies will respond to that with, well, these ones are, and we can prove it. And all that, that's all we need is a concerted effort by manufacturers to remove they're clearly not essential, because there are several pairs that are made without it. So we understand that it's not an essential product. So why can't all of them be made without it? And that's what we aim for.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your research with us.
Thank you for giving us a space to share our research.
Be sure to check out our other media briefings for ACS Fall 2023, which will be posted throughout the meeting at www.acs.org/ACS Fall 2023 briefings.